We appreciate you guys joining us. I'm Spencer Dent. This is Andrew Peterson. We're from Closed. Our company, we run win-loss programs for lots of different B2B companies. So we've learned a lot about why companies win and lose deals. So trying to figure out why you guys should even listen to us. Why should they even listen to us?
It's a good question. We're hoping to get you guys to stick around. We think we got some good content coming up, some interesting findings, because first and foremost, we have some really cool insight into what's happening in the B2B decision-making landscape, like with buyers. Over the last 5 or 6 years, our team has talked with tens of thousands of decision makers about the purchase decisions that they've made, why they have or haven't bought certain products. We've worked with some of the best companies in the world, companies like Salesforce, Fortune 500 companies like C.H. Robinson, Google, etc., to help these companies better understand why customers are or aren't purchasing their products. So we have some interesting data from this data set that we've built up over time. So I think that's one reason that's compelling. I think too, like we're going to share a strategy in this session today that can help you guys to get to your sales number, which is ultimately, we know, the number one priority. And we're going to talk about a creative way you can get to that number without having to focus so hard on just pipeline generation. So stay with us.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of CROs, it's the hardest job in the company. There's a huge spotlight on you. And especially in the economy we've been dealing with. We've seen this over the last year with like a lot of our clients where there's so many changing factors. There's so much uncertainty. And the first place that you look is, why aren't we hitting our numbers? And all of a sudden, these CROs that already have a really hard job are trying to figure out what is going on. This is abnormal for me.
Yeah.
So
especially those of you in hard hit sectors like tech. Tech had nearly 200,000 layoffs last year. Man, it's a tough climate for some of you to be hitting your numbers.
Yeah.
So if you're ever feeling down, or you don't feel like people empathize or understand what it's like to be a sales leader dealing with all that you have to deal with, just take consolation in what ChatGPT has to say. I was playing around with it earlier today. I was asking ChatGPT instead of Spencer, like, why is it so hard to be a sales leader? Check this out. Thought this was a pretty good answer. You guys are going to feel good about this.
It's funny. It gives a different answer every single time.
That's true.
Meeting revenue
targets.
Yeah.
It nailed it that time. Sometimes it misses that as number one, but that's definitely got to be.
You can be the coolest, most
one.
charismatic, lovable person, but if you don't hit your revenue targets, it's going to be hard for you to stick around. Managing the team, that's tough, right? Like usually CROs, they have like the biggest team in the org, and that creates so many people issues and challenges in and of itself. Keeping up with industry changes. What happened last year?
Yeah.
Right? Like all of a sudden, we started seeing it in our clients' data at Q1, Q2, stuff started sliding left, right, and center. Like deals just started pushing. And all of a sudden, what's going on in the market, in the macro market, let alone just like with what's happening within your industry.
Yeah. Just like this is like the 4th or 5th take of this video. ChatGPT is getting smarter now that I've asked 4 or 5 times the same question. I think this is the best answer that they've given. Look at number 5, dealing with rejection and uncertainty. Like that's definitely difficult for sales leaders. So we know how hard the job is. And our goal with this session today is to provide an interesting strategy for you that's going to make it just a little bit easier. So some of you probably dealt with missing targets in 2022 because of the economic environment. And many of you will have to deal with that potentially in 2023 as we look ahead to potentially a recession. And so I want to ask you, Spencer, in your experience, just for context, Spencer has been a case team leader at Bain & Company, working in their Salesforce effectiveness practice. So consulting for big B2B sales organizations on how they can get more efficient and hit their numbers. Then he was the first full-time hire into sales operations and strategy at Qualtrics, a unicorn company that eventually acquired by SAP. And now he's been a founder of a company. And as a founder, you're always selling. So he's got a lot of relevant sales experience. And I want to ask you, what do sales leaders tend to instinctively focus on when they miss a revenue target?
Well, thanks for talking me up. Hopefully you guys take this.
Anytime.
I mean, this is what happens, right? And we see this in our own business, right? Where there's tons of challenges with the macro economy. And you're sitting there, you're saying, how do I keep growing at the rate I want to grow? And that always translates down to 2 things: pipeline, which everybody focuses on, because if I have more pipeline, I assume I'm going to win more deals. But The second part is win rate. A good way to think about this is at bats and batting average. There's tons of tools and solutions out there to help CROs and VPs of sales get more pipeline. There's sales productivity tools, help you with your reach out, help you with your prospecting. There are tools to help you with your forecasting. There's tools to help you with deal management. There's all sorts of tools, but there's very few tools and very few CROs actually sit there and say, how can I improve my efficiency? How can I actually get more out of every single deal in pipeline? So we want to talk a little bit more about that. Like, how can you actually drive your win rate, right? Lots of you are instinctively focusing on pipeline, which is good, right? You want to make sure you're getting the right level of pipeline, quality pipeline in. But once it's there, what are you going to do, right? So how do you drive your win rate, right? Andrew's worked a lot in sales. Andrew knows all about this. How do you drive your win rate more effectively as a sales leader?
Yeah, this is where we have an interesting lens that, we feel like we can add value and shed some interesting insight. To really drive any metric in business, including win rate, first thing you got to do, of course, is measure it. Understand, what is it? How are we performing?
You mean companies actually do measure it? How many of our clients do you actually think religiously, consistently measure their win rate and do it well?
They would all tell you yes,
But they
100%
don't.
of them.
They don't. So if you don't actually measure your pipeline, you're blowing it from the get-go. If you don't know your batting average, that's a problem. Okay. And don't mess with the denominator and don't say, hey, let's cut these deals out to try to make our win rate look better. Just measure the win rate. Realize that the percentage doesn't matter. It's the trend on it that matters. So figure out a simple way to measure it over time, see what's happening with it.
Are you passionate about that?
Yes. It's one of those things that drives me crazy. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's fascinating for us. We do have an interesting lens that either companies think they're measuring it, but no one can actually tell you what their win rate is.
Yes.
Um,
Or they are measuring it, but they bastardize it by like cutting out a bunch of deals and things like that. But they don't think, well, we're only going to take deals that got to stage 3. Well, did you spend time on deals in stage 1 and 2? Maybe you should include those.
I reflect on a conversation I had with John DiAgostino, the former EVP of worldwide sales for Qualtrics when they were acquired by SAP. And he said that in some cases, the board came and asked them to be prepared for board meeting with a win rate. And he'll admit to you, if you want to reach out to him, send him a message on LinkedIn. He might respond, he might not. He admits that they didn't know.
Yeah.
And they just kind of made it up, threw it together last minute. So don't fall into that trap. So first, step 1, you've got to be measuring it. So you know the baseline or the benchmark. But then you've got to uncover the why. It's like that book, Start With Why. You can't improve the metric unless you know why you've been winning and losing deals. And so if you can do that, if you can come up with a strategy, and we'll talk in a minute about how to go about understanding the why behind your win rate. But if you can get there, if you have a credible, data-driven answer about why you really win and lose deals, it's going to help you get the support from other functions like the product team, the pricing team, the marketing team to drive the change that your business needs to drive in order to win more. It's also going to help you fine tune your own team's performance. You're going to be able to see the areas in which you need to be coaching your team a little bit better because it will shed light. Effective win-loss analysis sheds light on the successes and failures of your team in regards to their performance in the sales process. And then, perhaps most interesting, it's going to make you a little bit less dependent on pipeline generation to hit your number this year. Because if you start to do the math and you start to think about, we could increase pipeline generation and go out and try and find, by growing our SDR team or investing more in marketing and complaining about what the marketing team's doing or whatever it is, whatever the strategy is, we're going to make our AEs make X number more calls and emails, whatever that is. You can go focus on pipeline generation and increasing your pipeline 10%. Or you can just focus on the at-bats that are already in your pipeline and figure out a way to get a few percentage points more effective at winning. And you're going to drive home more runs. It's just
it's
like improve your batting average and you're going to increase your win rate.
It's how do you don't have to go buy 10 more barrels of lemons. You just need to juice the ones you have a little bit more, right? That's what it comes down to. So the interesting thing though, is this is important. I think a lot of people miss on this. As a CRO, you're like, well, okay, I need to figure out why I win and lose deals. Well, how do you go about doing that? Right? How do you actually go about doing that? And this is where people fall down and make the mistake, right? Because first off, most heads of sales and most companies, they don't actually do this. They don't, their sales process ends when somebody marks a deal as won or lost for all intents and purposes. Like, deal's over. They don't have the final step of figuring out why we had the outcome we did. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if they do it, it's very sporadic, right? It's like, oh crap, I have a board meeting and I have to prepare. We have our QBR, whatever it happens to be, and I have to prepare the win loss slide. So I'm going to go actually canvas the sales team either in person or via Slack and ask, why are we winning and losing deals, guys? Tell me what's going on. And then I'm going to try to put that into a bullet point word cloud that is not actionable and not data driven. It's just a bunch of anecdotes from the sales team. And one of the more sophisticated, or so they think sophisticated heads of sales, what they do is they have like their sales ops team create some type of CRM drop down where you can create wins and loss reasons. And you guys, I'm about, this might blow your mind. Your CRM is full of garbage data, especially when your reps are putting in. Let me give you a couple of stats for one. The CRM has the wrong competitor 65% of the time. Okay. That's not just me making that up. That's me actually looking at hundreds of thousands of deals that have been put into closed where we've gone out and gotten feedback from buyers and compared who the buyer said the primary competitor was with who the rep had inputted in Salesforce. 2/3 of the time it's wrong.
We saw this in real life once, many times. I remember when we were starting closed, if you like basement stories about startups, Spencer and I left Qualtrics in 2017 to start closed. And we were really, really fortunate in the first 6 months or so that we were in business to start providing win-loss analysis services to companies like Marketo, Cision, Avalara, Tableau. In one of these cases with one of these early clients that I've mentioned, they were really freaked out about a particular competitor.
Freaked out.
A very, very large, monopolistic company that bundles all their products together and tends to knock off best of breed products just by bundling them,
basically
bundling the basic version for free. And they were really, really worried about this behemoth of a competitor. And what did we find out when we got the data from them?
This was the great grand joke, right? It was like, oh, they're on every single deal. We're losing to them left, right, et cetera. What's going on? What's going on? Can you help us figure this out? So we go out and we reach out to the buyers via surveys and interviews and go collect all this feedback on their behalf and come back to them and tell them that actually most of the deals where we got buyer feedback, that particular competitor wasn't even on the deal, wasn't even in consideration. And what they realized was it was the first drop-down option in their Salesforce for a competitor. And the reps were selecting it as the first drop-down option, never updating it, and just going through closing out deals. And so they were about to make $100 million decisions about their product roadmap based entirely off of crap competitor data in their CRM.
Garbage in, garbage out, guys.
Here's another one. This one's actually really fun. You got buyers make decisions for very nuanced reasons. Okay. Personally, having talked to thousands of people who have made B2B decisions, I've found that there's never one reason why they do or don't choose somebody. In fact, usually it's like 3 to 5 reasons, and it balances. It's like, hey, I liked your company or the company X for A, B, and C, but D and E were problems for me. And E was such a problem that I had to go with a competitor, right? It's very nuanced. One of the things is your CRM, the close loss reasons, 85% of the time are wrong. Like what the rep is putting versus what the actual buyers tell us is wrong. And the reason why is often it's a very nuanced decision. There's multiple factors that's driving the outcome. And B, your drop-down list is like super clunky, doesn't make sense. And
the reps don't know.
They're
just guessing. The buyers are the only party that knows why a deal is really won or lost, why they made the decision that they made. What's fascinating about this stat to me is that in this study by our data science team, as they were comparing the loss reasons reported by reps versus the variety of factors that were tagged from the buyer's feedback. So one choice by the rep with maybe 5 or 6 factors that influence the buyer's decision from the buyer's perspective. 85% of the time, that one reason
Didn't even
didn't
match
even
up.
match any of the 5 reasons. So these reps are way off when it comes to answering for you as the head of sales about why the deals are actually won and lost, which just like in that case we gave earlier, where this other company was completely missing the mark in terms of who their true competition was. You as a sales leader, you need to know what's really happening and why deals are being won and lost so that you can get the right support that you need from the other
Yeah.
functions and maintain your
Yeah, if
credibility.
you how many of you are going to your product team and asking for something to be built because you're saying it's gonna impact deals, but all of that information and that stance is based off of rep input? Because if that's you, you don't deserve to get on the roadmap because your source is probably skewed. Your source is probably misinformed or guessing. You need to talk to the buyers. The buyers are the ones that will inform you. Because if you go to the product team and can tell the product team, this is what the buyers are saying, I don't know how they push back and say, no, I can't go on roadmap. But I can't tell you the number of times I saw in my career, hey, we have to have we have to have this built, we have to have this built, we have to have this, or we need these case studies, whatever, coming from the sales team. And then you go build all that, you spin up a bunch of work, and the win rate doesn't really change. You don't win the next deal. So pay attention to that, right? Like ultimately, the reasons why your reps are telling you that they're winning and losing are biased by them. It is sometimes they're a lot of times they're just guessing. And even if the buyer does tell them something, is the buyer telling them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I don't think so, right? Like the buyers don't actually tell your reps everything. This is a poker game. It is a negotiation. So they're not going to share everything with your reps. So what you're better off doing is making sure you have that final step in the sales process. So let's talk about how do you do that, right? What's the best way to measure why? You got to focus on your buyers. Okay. You can get input from the sales reps, but only use that to a certain extent and a trust level to calibrate it relative to what your buyers are saying.
So what I'm hearing, if I recap, is that historically a lot of sales leaders have fallen into this trap of thinking that their CRM is the ultimate source of truth.
Right.
But that's not the case. The ultimate source of truth, at least in regards to why you win and lose business, has to be your buyers.
Has to be your buyers. And if it's not your buyers, you should highly speculate the validity of it and whether or not you can trust it. Right.
So if I was a client of yours back in your Bain days and I was running a big sales team, I was nervous about 2023. How are we going to hit our numbers? Maybe in Q1, we have our target for the year and for the quarters, and maybe pipe gen just isn't where I'd like it to be to start off the year.
Yeah.
Our team's coming out of a daze over the holidays. We've been slow to get started. The economy is this looming factor that we're unsure about, but nervous about. And I decide, one of the best things I can do as a sales leader this year is to get a lot smarter about measuring my win rate and understanding, peeling the onion back on why we win and lose so that I, as a sales leader, can start being proactive about driving an improvement to my win rate. And I buy into this narrative that I can't trust what the CRM tells me, and I can't trust what sales reps are reporting are the reasons we're winning and losing. So I need to go to my buyers. What would you then, as with your Bain consulting cap on, or with your closed experience, what would you kind of lay out as the playbook for how the CRO can go about getting this information from the buyers at the scale that they need to drive the right decisions for their business, to drive an improvement to win rate?
Yeah. So the first thing is it's beautiful. You have to get there first, right? You actually have to say, this needs to be the final step in our sales process. Come hell or high water, our final step in our sales process, if we're going to invest the time to try to sell to somebody, we're going to try to figure out why they did or didn't choose us. And by the way, that
So
doesn't
you
have
mean
to be
when
I would
every
try
deal
to,
ends?
I try to go after pretty much every deal. There might be some nuances where like this deal was lost, but we still have another deal in play with the company. So we don't want to interrupt that. And so having a sophisticated approach to it is good. But at the end of the day, you should try to understand every single deal while you win and lose.
What if a
But
rep tells me he doesn't want me to talk to
then
that
they should,
customer?
then that rep should be taught about the importance of understanding and learning why you win and lose so you can get better. I'll give you a good example of this. When Pete Carroll took over the USC Trojans way back in the day, and they went on this win streak in this dynasty like approach. Part of that was probably because they were paying their players, but that's cool too. We figured out
They
since then
cheated
that
a
that's
little.
okay.
Right.
But one of the main things they did was Pete Carroll came in and he named a theme for every day of the week. And Monday was called Tell the Truth Monday. And that's where the team would get together and they would watch film and figure out, based on the film, they would tell the truth about why they won and lost. If your sales team doesn't have a culture of seeking out and wanting to understand the truth so that you can get better, you're not going to be competitive in the long run. You are going to get beat. So if I have a sales rep who's like, oh, I don't really want them to reach out, I would say, well, why not? What do you have to lose? Because actually what you end up finding happens is if you go out and engage your buyers, how many times have we had deals come back to us where we go out and we reach out to the buyer and the buyer says, hey, actually, I'm still in the market. And that deal ended up falling through and I'm still interested. So there's opportunities to win back. Other times there's wins and we get it on and we find out from the buyer that, hey, things haven't been going well and I'm actually at risk of losing. So there's ancillary benefits of the feedback in and of itself. But the first thing you have to do is actually create a culture where you seek the truth. If that's not part of your culture as a sales team, you're bound to lose.
So we got to get feedback on every deal.
Yes.
Pretty much. Maybe
Yes.
there's a few exceptions here and there,
Yes.
but we need to go out and get feedback from these buyers on every deal if we want to be able to tell the truth Monday.
Yeah,
like
and
Pete Carroll.
But this is important too. Just be careful. Like understand your feedback can come in different forms, right? So if you're if your company does really, really big deals, the way you go get feedback from $1 million deal is different from the way you go get feedback from a $2,000.
I was actually going to ask this.
Yeah.
So we want feedback on every deal. Does that mean the CRO is reaching out and talking to every single one of these customers?
No, not necessarily. Maybe on your biggest ones, right? But what you want, this is the key. It can't be bespoke. It needs to be a systematic process that you build in. And that's basically where we specialize, right? We plug into your CRM as deals get closed. We help you configure which deals do you want the CRO to go talk to? Which deals do you want an independent third party to go talk to and actually interview? Which deals do you want to send a survey to? And basically map the different feedback tools that are at your disposal to your pipeline so that you can go try to engage every single buyer. The beauty of that is then you don't end up with this situation where it's like, well, we only went and talked to the deals that were going to get us in trouble, right? Like the head of product can't be like, well, you just only went and talked to the 3 people who were going to say that the product didn't work. It's like, no, we talked to everybody and this is coming up the most.
You know, it's been interesting to me to observe that I've sensed from our customers, because we work with a lot of CROs that are trying to solve this problem and they're working with Closed to find a strategy that does scale. That's not just the CRO or someone from the marketing team reaching out to all these customers, but an actual scalable approach with surveys for certain deals, third-party interviews for key deals to get more candid and unbiased feedback, etc. But I found it interesting that I'm hearing more and more CROs getting questioned in board meeting along the lines of, hey, we've noticed that performance wasn't where we wanted to be last quarter, or we've noticed that in starting to track win rate, the win rate has declined. And what's the explanation? They're getting asked for the explanation of the why behind
totally.
these.
Or there's the elephant in the room. There's that elephant in the room, big competitor that you're always head to head with them. And it's like, why, what do we have to do to beat them? What do we have to do to beat them? And how do they answer? How does the CRO answer?
Makes up a story or shares the most recent anecdote from a deal that they were on.
And how much more powerful is it, not just frankly, to get to the right answer for your business, if you have full set of feedback about why you're winning and losing, but frankly, how much more beneficial is that to you and your reputation to be able to answer that and the confidence of you and the organization to move forward when you can come back and say, actually, the last 35 deals we've had against this competitor, The top 3 reasons we won are A, B, and C. The top 3 reasons we lose are A, B, and C. Here's the actual quotes from the buyers. This is what we're going to do against it.
Yeah. And
Like,
there's all kinds of success stories. The CROs that are doing this are driving change for their business that they would not have been able to drive. At our sales kickoff at close, most recently, we had a CRO of a client of ours come in person to present to the team. He was very gracious to do that. And he shared a few stories that were just fascinating, that after implementing win-loss analysis at scale, getting this unbiased feedback from the buyers post-decision to understand what really happened and why the deals were won and lost, the first thing he shared was that they actually found out that pricing wasn't a factor in their losses. It wasn't a reason they were losing.
and how
was actually-
many of your reps that on the deals that you're losing right now, they're like, it's price.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, all the time. Reps
But what do
blame
we-
price all the time. That's easy. That's
Right.
natural. Or they blame product, and it was probably their sales capability. But he pointed out that in their case, buyers started to tell them post-decision in this non-threatening environment after the decision's already been made, the purchasers, the wins, told them that they would have been willing to spend more. And they increased the price of their product per user by 30%. That's an immediate increase in revenue for the upcoming year of 30%.
Yeah.
Like, that is a huge ROI on simply asking the buyers for feedback on why they've made the decision that they've made. So he also pointed out that for a long, long time, he had felt like their product was outdated in terms of user experience and interface. But that's a hard conversation for a CRO to have with the head of product, to say, hey, we're losing deals because of product. How many times have the product leader heard that, pushed back, said, you don't have the data, or, oh, okay, we'll take that into consideration for our roadmap, and then nothing changes?
Yeah.
I think everybody on this call has probably had experiences like that. Well, what changed was now he had the data from the buyers post-decision to say, hey, this is a consistent theme on our losses, that customers find our product hard to use, the interface is outdated, it's not modern enough, it's clunky.
Yep.
And it's a key factor in why we're winning and losing deals. And he's able to finally go to that team and convince the product organization to make the change that needed to be made, that he had the hunch needed to be made, but he never had that data, and he'd never been able to make that compelling business case to his counterparts in other departments. So ultimately, what we've tried to lay out for you guys here today is a strategy, win-loss analysis, that's focused on buyer feedback as the ultimate source of truth, as opposed to your CRM or sales rep input, as a strategy for you to get to your number by focusing a little bit less on pipeline generation and a little bit more on that batting average, that win rate.
Get more out of every single deal, right?
And then having the data that you need to go proactively drive the change the rest of your business needs to change in order to enable your team to make your lives easier, help you win more, and in the end, drive that win rate higher.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if you understand why you win and lose from your buyers, you can push your sales team to focus on the things that will help them win more. You can push the rest of the org to deliver the things that you need from a product, messaging, pricing standpoint so that you can win more. And ultimately, it's your head on whether or not you hit your revenue target, right? So this is like a key weapon that a lot of CROs aren't aware of and they're not using. So hopefully this has been useful to you, right? At the end of the day, we think it'll make a big change. So yeah, we appreciate you guys taking time. This is our life's work. We're super passionate about it. If we can ever help you, feel free to reach out to us. Spencer at Closed, Andrew at closed.com, CLOZD.com, or hit us up on LinkedIn, whatever works best. Always happy to chat, see how we can help you out.
Yeah. Likewise, we'd love to help you out with the analysis of a key win or loss that you've had recently. If you're unsure about the value proposition of direct feedback from your buyers, we'll help answer that question for you. You can provide a list to us of some recently won and lost deals, and we'll go out and we'll engage your buyers as a neutral third party, have an in-depth discussion with them about why they did or didn't purchase, and convey that back to you through the Closed platform, where you get a detailed transcript and overview of the interview and a complete 360-degree answer about why you did or didn't win that deal. So
super easy process.
We'll share a link,
yeah.
QR code. You can click into that and get that process started so that we can go out and do that for you on a big win or loss.
Think super easy process. 15-minute phone call. We'll go collect the feedback for you, get you guys seeing the beauty of the value of understanding why. You want to lose.
Thanks.